Hi everybody. Today we're going to be working on finishing off this page here, which has been a work in progress for quite a while now. And he does fit in quite well with my theme of Leo the Lion for the month of August. Plus this week I only have the one day to be filming, and this is likely to be the last video before I do head away on holiday. So I needed something pretty quick and simple and easy to be filming today, and I thought this fit the bill quite nicely. And this picture is from Selina Fenech from the Dark Fantasy Grim and Gothic colouring book. I've started her quite a while ago, and I was using these Deco Time coloured pencils here from B&M here in the UK. And having just found these and brought those out again to be working on this picture, I did realise it just says also suitable for watercolour effects. So you can actually use these with water apparently. They're a bit of a watercolour pencil, so it might be quite interesting to play around with that a little bit, maybe for the background. Originally I was just using the pencils, I think, with a little bit of marker I brought in for this spiky ball here down the bottom of the picture. I have brought out some markers that I think I might be able to use instead of just sticking to the pencils and having things take a good long while. But I'm just going to play it by ear and work on finishing off this page today, and I thought you guys might want to follow along on the colouring session, see what we can actually make of this one. So I'm going to zoom us in and we'll get started. Okay, there we are, zoomed in a little bit, and we can see there isn't very much to actually be finishing off on this picture. I think I've left all the little fiddly bits till the end because they looked a little bit too intimidating at the time. But I'm going to forge ahead today. We are going to try and finish this piece. And I'm thinking my idea for this picture is to stick with the kind of silver, white, the red and the black as a colour scheme, and maybe work with that a little bit. And I think what I was going to do is give this lion a black mane. But if I'm planning on sticking with the Deco Time colour pencils, these are not the most pigmented pencils. They are pretty cheap pencils, as I said, from B&M. So if I'm going to give this lion a bit of a black mane, I think I'll have to come in with a marker as a background for it, and maybe bring in a bit of a darker black pencil, because this is the black pencil I think here. The shadow I've put in underneath his mane, I think that was actually the black pencil. So the black pencil isn't the darkest. I'm thinking maybe to bring in the Crayola black pencil, which is along the same lines as the Deco Time pencils. So yeah, the marker that I've chosen, Hoo markers as usual, is this one here, and this one is called R350 Dark Purple Grey. It does have a kind of a purpley tone to it rather than just being a cool grey. So I thought I'd give this one a little bit of a go as a base for his hair. It is really dark, and this is just Amazon paper, so I'm hoping it does take this marker to be the base for this mane here. Okay, now it's time for some pencil shading, and these are the colours I've pulled out from the Deco Time pencils. This is about the lightest grey there, number 125. They don't really have colour names, just numbers. That is number 125. I've got the white there, which is number 108. I'm not entirely sure how opaque that one is, but we will see in a little minute. This is the blue, which seems to be the darkest blue from the set. That's 073. And this is my black from Crayola. These pencils, if anyone doesn't have them, they are kind of triangular pencils, so there won't be any problem with them rolling off the table, and they do sharpen all right. They still fit into the normal pencil sharpener, so those are the ones I have picked out. And as a kind of aside, as this is the first time I have used these pencils on camera, there do seem to be 4 sets of them. I'll show you here. I don't think I've put them all back in the right kind of tins when I have been using them. But there's a tin of green, a tin of kind of pink and purple colours, a tin of blue, and a tin of maybe yellow, orange and brown. There's 18 in each tin. I have only really used them once or twice before. And this white, yeah, definitely not the most opaque white. I think there's going to have to be some white gel pen coming in here, but I'll just use it for a few little highlights on his mane here, and then come in with some darker shadows, see what we can make happen. I'd like to stick to the same kind of pencils I was using for the original colouring for this one, to see if we can get the same kind of shades and ideas going on I had originally. And yeah, I think this one was kind of put aside because I'd left all the fiddly bits till last. So that's what we're going to be coping with today. Which way is my light coming? My light seems to be coming from the left. So yeah, the most highlight on his mane would actually be on this left-hand side. So I'll have to go a little bit more generous with my highlights on this side. and see what we can do. Bring in more of the blue and the black over on this side of his mane. Most of the background I'm thinking I'm just going to paint over or colour over somehow, either with markers or chalk pastel, something along those lines. Maybe try see just how water soluble these pencils are. But I don't want this to turn into a review of the pencils. I'm just kind of mentioning a few bits as I go along because there's some kind of pencils that not many of you may have seen unless you are in the UK and go to B&M. But yeah, it's not a review of the pencils. This is just finishing off this page as it does fit in with my theme for the month. And it should be a quick and easy finish with a bit of luck, even though we are left with most of the fiddly bits here. I'm going to bring in some gel pens, I think. Yeah, that should maybe give me a little bit of a quicker way to be colouring here. I've moved on to the black from Crayola, which again isn't the most pigmented black, to be honest, but it is more pigmented than the black we actually had going on in this set. They are definitely not artist grade pencils, more along the lines of the Crayola in my experience. They do tend to work okay on this Amazon paper as they are pretty hard pencils, and I found that yeah, the harder pencils work better on the Amazon paper. Or some of the Amazon paper. As you know, Amazon paper can be a bit hit and miss. I'm not entirely sure where this book was printed, possibly Britain, but yeah, the different countries of printing Amazon paper tend to have different qualities slightly, so some is better than others. Yeah, that's looking pretty fluffy, I'm thinking. I might bring in a little bit of the lighter grey and a bit of the blue for the actual shadows, but that's looking pretty fluffy for a mane, I think. Maybe I was a little bit undecided at the time whether this was going to be an actual black mane for this lion or whether to go for a full-on white lion. I do tend to try and go a little bit away from the normal kind of colour schemes for things. So yeah, my lion is white rather than the usual golden browns. I think as well, the red here was the first thing I did actually colour to test out these pencils more than anything, and I didn't really want the red kind of blending into the orange and the yellow too much. So yeah, it's looking pretty fluffy there. Let's see how well this blue works in the shadows. Might be pulling away from that red a little bit, I think. Yeah, that blue is pulling a little bit away from the red, I think. So what I might do is see if we've got purple. We'll try and erase a bit of that blue. I think that's maybe a little bit too much of a contrast to the red, with the red being such a warm colour there and that blue coming in, being a little bit cool. So let's see if we've got a warm purple that kind of matches in with this grey we've used in the background for his mane. Bring in that purple and see if we can get a little bit of shading. Okay, I found this purple here, which is 085, and that's not such a different colour than the actual marker. Oops, I've just sharpened it. The lead is snapping off there, but yeah, it's not such a different colour than the actual marker, but I think it's boosting it more towards that purple kind of tone a little bit. And it is quite a warm sort of greyish purple, this one, so I think that might work quite well. We'll see how we go. It does seem at the moment to be working okay and not standing out as much as that blue was. We also do have the grey that I pulled out. That is more of a bluey grey though, so that will be a highlight kind of colour. And I'm not sure if it's just my lamp, but that is standing out there a little bit more than the actual white. That does seem to be giving more of a highlight than the white is. Let's try. Maybe because it is kind of a bluish grey. It is the same grey that I used for the body of the lion. Yeah, whatever's happening there, that's working, I think. It does look as if he has at least a darker coloured grey mane there, if nothing else. Probably doesn't look entirely black, as I didn't really want to bring in a Prussian blue or anything like that as a base for the black, as I usually do when I'm doing black hair or anything like that. Okay, let's get a little bit heavier with the black on this side. Didn't actually check which way my light was coming, so yeah, the light is coming from the left, and we're going to need more shadows on the right. Give him a shadow behind his ear there. I may come in with the white gel pen, as per usual, add a few highlights down this side, and apologies if you can hear the cat snoring. Yeah, let's see what happens if we come in with some white gel pen highlights there. And that would be along this side of his mane. That's where our light is coming from. I'll add a few over this side as well with the white highlights. Not as many as the side that the light would be coming from, but to try and pick out a little bit of that texture, because the pencils aren't the most pigmented, as I've said a couple of times, I think, and yeah, just to emphasize that texture. The color of the marker may bleed through that white gel pen and make it not quite as vibrant, but I don't think that would matter too much. We can even go over some of them with the pencil to dull those down. We don't want quite so many highlights there, because this kind of mane here would be bending away from the light, so yeah, there wouldn't be that many down there. That's a little bit better, and that's looking pretty good for his mane, I'm thinking. We could probably bring in the white pencil if we don't want any highlights down here. Okay, while I've got this Crayola black here, I might add in a few more darker shadows to his actual fur. I think, yeah, this shading here, this was the actual black from the Deco Time pencils, so not the most opaque or the most pigmented pencils, but they work okay on the Amazon paper. And they were cheap. That's the main reason I've got them. I think they were actually cheap. This is the other darker grey. This is 124. I have made a bit of an attempt for fur texture down there. I can come in with the white pen again and emphasize that a little bit. We do have the light coming this way, so try and bear that in mind. I think this bit of his tail here, on the end of his tail, that would be the darker colour as well, so we'll come in with our marker again. Okay, let's do the same here for this bit of tail as we did for his mane, just to show those are the same colour. So we're coming in with that Crayola black again. Hopefully we're on camera. Bit of the white to pick out. Highlights on the top maybe. Oh, the purple colour. Still trying to make his tail look a little bit fluffy there. And we used this light grey. Okay, and we'll bring in this light grey again. We'll keep with that, because I think these were the colours I was using for the lion. There aren't that many greys in the set of pencils, even looking at the whole set, and most of them are kind of blue greys. There doesn't seem to be that many warm greys, if any at all. Coming in with the darker grey there. Okay, let's be a little bit more heavy-handed with the shadows. Looking at it, I think I was a little bit tentative with my shadows, so yeah, we'll bring those in a little bit more, if nothing else, so that we can come in with white gel pen and pick out the fur so that he does look fluffy. And we're coming in with the lighter grey now. Not being too tentative. The shadows would be on his legs down here, where he's got them all tucked up under himself there. That would be a lot more shadowy. And And a gel pen. I'm going to try picking out these kind of fur lines here with white gel pen. I'm not sure how well they will stand out, but we'll add a few in anyway. And it will give that idea that he is, yeah, a little furry lion here. We can emphasize that a little bit by going over and breaking through the line art here with a few little fur lines to show that his fur is kind of going over the lady's dress a little bit there, and give it a little bit of texture. Okay, let's move on to his face now. This is with the lightest grey. This time trying to remember that the light is coming from the left, and fill out the rest of his face here. There is a lot of shading actually put in for us here by Selina, so we're following that pretty much. And as his nose is kind of coming out there, that would be light. Anything that comes out is light, anything that goes in is dark. The same as colouring a human face. So we'd have the shadow in his eye socket there. And he'd have a highlight and down his nose, but we do want a little bit of fur texture. He seems to have a little kind of brow to his nose there as well, so we'll add in that kind of little bridge shape where his nose comes in, and he'll have a little bit of shadow here for some shape down the sides of his face, possibly a highlight on the very edge as usual. You might bring in some gold for his eyes, some sort of yellow, I think. I think that will work quite well, as we have brought in some yellow gems here. I'm not sure if those are picking up on camera. We do have some little yellow gems here, but I think I seem to be staying away from the gold on this one and heading more into the silver. So I don't really want to bring in too much gold, but I think putting it into his eyes would pick up quite well on those crystals there. So we'll come in with a darker grey now, and his nose would be that darker grey. This one is 124, the darker grey. And we're keeping the shadows, yeah, mainly to this side of his face. And to the same kind of areas as we would if we were colouring a human. Going to have some kind of shadow where his mane joins onto his face there. Kind of like a human hairline if they would be casting shadow onto his face. We probably need a little bit more kind of roundness going on here for his muzzle, so we'll shade the bottom there. He would have some shadow underneath his chin, as again that is curving away. Inside his ears, we might bring in the darker colours inside his ears, I think, to show we are in the shade. As with a human ear, the inside would be darker, so we'll come in with the pencils and then maybe pick out some white highlights. And it looks like the inside of his ear is really fluffy, so we'll try and emphasize that a little bit with the white gel pen. Try and go over this line art a little bit. Something along those lines. Not so much detail on that ear, that is further away, but we do want a little bit of fluffiness going on, and around the edge of his face here we can bring in that reflected light. Plus that makes it look as if his fur is going over the edge of his mane there. We do have the fluffiness going on, the same around the bottom of his jawline here, and the side of his face. And my line doesn't have any whiskers. Maybe I'll draw some in if I feel like it towards the end, but yeah, he doesn't have any whiskers. How's that looking? I don't think that's looking too bad. I think I might do some very light shading with the light grey, not trying to do any fur texture, just shading very gently around this side of his face to emphasize the fact that we are away from the light there. And we do have the shape of his face curving away from us there. Yeah. Okay, now we need some sort of gold colour for his eyes. I do want his eyes to be standing out, and as the pencils are not the most opaque and bright colours, I'm going to bring in a marker for his eyes here. Okay, and that one is Y140 Nugget. And we'll try shading that with this 134, which is kind of a blood orange sort of colour. Again, trying to keep with that red, fiery sort of colour palette we have going on there. And the highlights for his eyes. Maybe we need to pick them out with the black, I'm thinking. That's better. It's got a little bit of eyeliner going on, but I think he needed the black to emphasise his eyes a little bit there. There we go, I'm quite happy with that. Now we're moving on to the more fiddly bits that I haven't quite decided how to do. So our lion, I'm going to be calling done there. I think he's looking pretty good. So yeah, we're going to leave him as he is there. Pretty much done. And we're going to move on to these fiddly bits here. I haven't quite decided how to do these armbands. Whether to have them as black, maybe bring in the markers again and do the same kind of thing we had going on here. I think that might work. As I said, I'm trying to stay away from the gold because I think the original idea was to stay away from the gold here. I don't want to bring in too much red. I think maybe doing this swirl here on the handle as the red, that might work quite well. I hadn't really thought about my colour palette or anything like that. I just pulled out this page and thought, right, we're going to finish this one off on the camera today, see what we can make happen. Yeah, I'm thinking to go with the marker, the same marker on these armbands. Let's just commit. Let's just get some of this down. Hopefully we'll be able to see through there enough to give some kind of suggestion that we have some carving. I think the black I did originally bring in for this ball and chain, that was a black Sharpie, so that will be a lot blacker, and that hopefully will serve to make sure there's a difference between this black and the black of the mace. Is it flail kind of ball and chain there that she's got going on with the silver spikes going on? Yeah, I think that black should work. I do have a black glitter gel pen that I can bring in to colour these bands around the edges to again make those look a little bit different. But I think that if we do come in with the same kind of colours, maybe this black Crayola, emphasise a few bits and bring out some of the carving on these armbands so they look like kind of black metal, maybe would be the idea here. Hopefully that will work. Yeah, I just thought maybe silver for those bands around the edges, but no, I think the black would work a lot better there. That's the bands around the edges. I won't bring in the purple. I think I'll just come in with the white and then bring in some highlights as well. See how well that works. Trying to make things a little bit less complicated here instead of colouring each little bit of filigree there and making it all super complicated. We're just going to give a suggestion that there's a little bit of carving to this medal here, like that. And I have got a black gel pen here, black glitter gel pen. It's kind of unbranded, just a cheap one. But again, to show these bands, maybe a slightly different colour. Not sure exactly how well that will work, but they will have a bit of glitter to them and look slightly different. Hopefully when that dries anyways, it will look slightly different. We can come in and highlight them with the white gel pen. A little bit of an experiment. Let's try highlighting them with a little bit of silver while it's still damp. Okay, we can live with that. Let's just tidy up that little bit of a white highlight. Now I have to remember not to get my hands in that. Maybe if I swoosh the page around upside down. And let's do the same here that we did with her bands on her legs. Well, yeah, we've done a little bit more so far. I think that's looking okay. I was thinking maybe to do this swirl of the handle here in the red. So I'll try and find a marker. I think this one should work. This one is called Crimson. The number is RV350. So let's do this kind of swirly bit here. I'm thinking we need a lighter grey for these parts here. Maybe to bring in the lighter grey colour that we have going on with the lion, our white lion. So I'll bring in a lighter grey and see what we can get going on there. This is the lightest grey we have, this one here, which is a CG030. I'm working with my smaller set of Ohuhu markers today to save getting the big one out. And especially around where this ball and chain is here, I'm thinking we need to have the lighter grey maybe, because if we had another set of black here, I think that would be a little bit too dark. So we're going to go with the lighter grey. She seems to have her hand over the top of this kind of mace idea here. We might bring in some black there, I'm thinking. Maybe with the lighter, maybe with the lighter kind of oval sort of circle things here. We'll see how well we can make that work. And then come down into the lighter colours. I don't know, it's looking as if this here should be black because that's dark with the spikes on it, and this one should be dark with spikes on it, I'm thinking. So yeah, maybe we should, let me see. Yeah, this would be the lighter grey here, I'm thinking. Does that work? Yeah, if we keep those spikes on here as silver as well, possibly. We can bring in our dark, this purple grey that we used as the base for his mane. We can bring that in to work as the black. As we did on her wrist, we can bring that in for a bit of black. And then we can bring in our silver gel pen maybe for these spikes. Does that look okay? It's a little bit difficult when you have so many different sections there of a handle. Hard to pick the colours. Okay, we're going to shade with our darker grey here. So we can get some shading going on. Not bad. These whiter bits would be shaded with the grey. The same greys that we used for the lion. She does have some rings on her fingers there, and it does look as if I haven't quite finished shading the skin tone. I might need to bring in some skin tones there. Just finish that off a little bit. There we go. Just bringing in the black Crayola there to add a little bit of shading to that light grey. It is quite a warm black, the Crayola, so that is standing out from the black of the Sharpie there. We bring in the white gel pen too. Bring in some highlights. I think we've got something interesting going on now. So I'm going to use the Crayola to shade the black parts of the handle. Just to make it look as if there is a bit of shape going on. We can bring in the white. For a suggestion of highlights, and then bring in the white gel pen for a little bit more highlights. We'll see. These bits probably need a little bit of the grey shading to them. Okay, I'm going to bring in the white gel pen now. Add in a few highlights here. Probably on the wrong side. I've forgotten which side my light's coming from. Oh dear. I've So we would have highlights on this edge, not the other edge. Well, that can be the reflected light. All right, we can tone down this one here. Just colouring over it. There we go. There is a highlight there, but not as much. I think we got something going on there. And these spikes, I'm going to copy what I have going on this ball in the bottom corner. Just bring in this gel pen. This is a glitter silver gel pen. I think the same kind of one that I was using when I was colouring this originally. And I'm just going to colour over this because this gel pen is pretty opaque. So I'm just going to colour over that band there just to make it a plain silver band. Get rid of some of that detail that we don't really need. We can maybe add in these as silver highlights, maybe. We could maybe use the silver to highlight down that side, possibly. Not quite sure how well that'll work, but yeah, a little bit of an experiment. Okay, we have our white handle here. Does the white show up? Not super well. Let's see what we've got in the way of dark red. All right, there's a couple of dark reds here. We have 095 and we have 097. I don't think I used those for this kind of drapery here because these weren't actually sharpened, so I don't think I used them. But let's see what can happen if we use those on this handle here. Give us a little bit of shading. This one is the darkest. I'm trying to remember which side my light is coming from. There we go, so the darker would be down this edge. This is quite a nice colour actually. Seems to be working quite well. There will be, as usual, the white gel pen. And this is the kind of a mid-tone. More of a kind of a scarlet red, maybe, brighter one. So this would, I think, definitely soak through the white gel pen. But yeah, we don't want many super bright white highlights anyways. And this mace here or flail isn't the actual subject of the picture. It's not the focal point, so there we go. Pop in a few highlights. Trying to keep to the right side. Okay, looking pretty good. Yeah, there's really not that much to be doing on this one. I think the reason I put it to the side was that I couldn't figure out how to do all these detail bits. But I think the best idea when you do have lots of little detail bits like this is just jump in. See how things kind of develop. That's the way I work anyways. Things usually develop their own little way. We can see what's actually happening. That's looking pretty good. For her bikini top here, we do want that to be matching the bottom of her costume. So I'm going to have to bring in the silver glitter gel pen for these kind of filigree bits down the side. I might have to simplify this pattern here a little bit because it's quite hard to get shading going on with that silver gel pen. I'll maybe try and bring in some more of these yellow gems here for these kind of bits of gems she has going on. And maybe red for the middle bits. I do want it to look a different colour than the handle though. So I might see if I've got a more orangey red and bring that in with a marker just to cut down on time. Okay, so R070 agate. I think it's more like this kind of orangey red we have going on here, which probably isn't picking up very well because, yeah, the camera doesn't do very well with orangey reds, apparently, I've learned. So I'm going to fill in these middle parts of her bikini with this kind of orangey red. I'll try and shade that with a little bit of the darker reds that we were using just, and then bring in the jewels and the silver gel pen. Yep, we're getting somewhere near close to finish now. I'm going to try and keep this as unedited as possible so that we can see how I've actually gone ahead and finished this. Maybe I'll start with the darker red we had going on. And yeah, these pencils were quite hard work, I'm thinking. That's another reason that this picture got put to the side. It was quite hard work. The same kind of lines as Crayola, I think. It's quite hard work to get your layers built up and your colours looking nice without pressing so hard that you're tearing through the paper. Bringing in the markers does help quite a lot with that, but originally I was just sticking to the pencils. I could have brought in a marker for her skin tone. I think that would have worked quite nicely, but yeah, I think at the time I was thinking I could use the pencils just to do the whole picture. Trying to give a little bit of an indication there is a bit of carving going on there. There is quite a lot of white on her skirt, the drapery there, so I think bringing in the white there helps it match in quite nicely. And I'm thinking what I might do is bring in this black gel pen here, the black glitter, to do the outside of this bikini top. And that might be able to give us our pattern without having to shade the silver. This is the thinking, because we do have a bit of a pattern here with the black. That might work a little bit better in what I'm thinking. Making it up a little bit there because it's quite hard to see. Maybe to make that match in a little bit better, we can do a little bit of this filigree also with the black. Maybe these bits here. Originally I coloured that with the silver gel pen, so I'm just going over that. Okay, and the silver for these edges here, maybe. Okay, we're not super matchy there, but I think we've got something that's kind of going on. She does have some rings on her fingers that I don't really fancy going into with all the pencils, so I'm going to fill those in maybe with the silver gel pen as well. We can turn them into solid silver rings, there's nothing saying we can't. Something like that, and there is one there that I'll maybe pick out with the black gel pen to match in with her top. So the silver and the black are working together there. Okay, yeah, that's not looking too bad, I don't think. Right, do these little bits here with the silver and then stick on some jewels over the top a little bit later. But while that is drying, I'll move on to shade her hair a little bit, because her hair is in the same kind of white, the silver and the grey that we used for the lion. So we have a little bit of the darker grey. It's a little bit hard to tell what's going on there, we'll see. But the idea for giving the lion a black mane was so that her hair could look different behind there. I seem to have burnished the page quite a lot there, so it's hard to pick out a lot of detail by going over with the pencils even more. Okay, I'll maybe come in just with some shading, I think, with this lighter grey, especially in these areas that would be in shadow and behind her shoulder here. And the lion. I'm not sure if we have got hair going on there or background. As I said, it's quite hard to tell. I'm not sure her hair is looking more silver than white now, but I think it works either way. We do have a lot of silver going on. As I said, I've stayed away from the gold. Okay, a little bit of white gel pen now, I think. I'll just scoosh this over, add in a few highlights. We'll try and put some kind of colour in the background that will make her hair stand out somehow. We might bring in a few more highlights on the lion's mane as well. Okay, not looking too bad. I do think there is a bit of shading here left to do on her hands. I can't remember what colours I was actually using, but let's see what kind of skin tones we have going on with these pencils. These two seem to be the main skin tones in there, the 138 and the 106, a light and a dark version of a light skin tone, if that makes sense. And I've brought out this one, 129, which looks to be a sort of burnt ochre sort of colour that I think might be good for shading. I'm not sure if that's what I was using when I first coloured the picture, but I think these skin tones were about the only choices, so that's a fairly safe bet. We don't want to have super much shading on these hands because we are right where the light source will be shining. But we do want them to look like they have a little bit of shape, so we'll do something with them. Just using those twee pencils there to add a little bit of shading so it doesn't look as if I have forgotten her hands, which I think I did originally. Okay, something like that. I'm not sure if I can add a little bit of shading to this silver. They're very fiddly little details, so they don't make super much difference. Tiny little bits of rings there on her fingers. Try some darker shading on those lips to make them more kind of obvious and standing out a little bit more. Not too bad. I'm thinking to give her blue eyes. That seems to be what's resonating with me a little bit here. So let's grab a blue marker. There is a little bit of her top here crossing over her shoulder that I missed doing with the white gel pen, or the silver gel pen rather. There we go, a little bit of silver there. I think, yeah, we can pretty much call that done. So I'm going to grab a blue marker now for her eyes. We want a nice bright kind of blue, so I'm going to go with this one, which is called crystal blue. Yeah, that works, I think. That one is a B110 crystal blue. A bit of the lighter grey so that our white highlights will show up there. And our white highlights. Try and make them the same as we gave the lion. Big one, little one. Okay, there's her eyes done, and I have just realised she does have a foot there that I haven't shaded. So where are my skin tones? Looks like I've tried to shade it and erased. So we'll bring in these two skin tones and a little bit of the brown kind of ochre colour, just to add a little bit of shading to that foot. I've got some little gold kind of crystals here. I'm not sure they're the same ones I used the first time, but I think they're close enough. We can see they're close enough, I think, that I can pop those onto her top, and hopefully that will match enough. Yes, that works. Okay, now we'll see how well these pencils do dissolve in the water. I'm not entirely sure what colour to put in the background there. I'm thinking green would be a bit too much of a contrast with the red. Purple wouldn't be quite different enough to the red. Blue? Would blue work maybe? Let's see. Okay, I've picked out this blue here, which is 076. I'm thinking that might work, especially if it does dissolve in the water. I've brought a little pot of water. We get that onto the screen. I've brought my little pot of water. We're going to see how well these pencils do dissolve, in case anyone is wondering. I am personally wondering, so it will be interesting to see how well this does work. Let's see. Let's pick a little corner here. We're going to colour over the pattern in the background, just with the blue, and we're going to fade out the blue from our picture in the middle, and just as if the background isn't really there. Hopefully you'll be able to see the pattern of the background through the actual blue, so we're going to fade that out a little bit And see how well these dissolve when they're drawn onto the paper. I'm going to try and lay quite a bit of pigment down there so that there is something to be dissolving. And try not to bring in too much water because this is Amazon paper. So I don't want to, let's maybe dab some off on kitchen roll. I don't want to have this dissolving super much. And no, these pencils do not dissolve in the water. So if anybody is thinking of trying them as watercolour pencils, no, these pencils are not dissolving in the water, even though it does say on the tin that these pencils will dissolve in the water. I'm not sure if you can actually see that on the camera. The paper is buckling quite a lot because, yeah, Amazon paper, and the pencil is not dissolving. So we're going to have to work our way around that now. Okay, we have a plan B. I've picked out this Crayola Super Tip, which is something similar to the blue I originally had going on there. I'm going to scribble on a plate, this plate here, with the Super Tip and just pick up the colour to use as watercolour in the background. I'm not sure if I'll be able to paint over what we had going on here because the pencils are fairly kind of waxy or oily. I'm not sure what kind of base they do have, but yeah, we're going to try and paint with this Crayola Super Tip. I scribbled on the plate there, we can see. I'm going to try and use that as watercolour by picking up the colour with the brush and just painting that on. This has more of a grey sort of undertone to it. That is just painting over the pattern there. I might go in and pick out the pattern, I don't know. So yeah, that is working a lot better. It does seem to be working quite well when the paper is originally wet. So we might try that around the edges to get a bit of a blurred edge, but in the inside areas we might just go in with the colour and lay that down quite flat. I think this one will work quite well as a background with the reds and the silver that we have going on. I'll just bring it in kind of on its own in the kind of enclosed areas here behind Our Lady. It is soaking into this paper super fast. I'm hoping it doesn't wrinkle too much. So this paper does not behave really well with water medium in the best of times from the looks of it. It's not the best paper for water media, which Amazon paper generally isn't, but sometimes you can get away with it. In this case, no, you cannot get away with it. But I've started, so I'll finish. I'm going to try laying down the water first, especially over these areas where the pattern actually is. And this will wrinkle the paper, but I want to see if the colour will blend out into the water. I have gone over her hair a little bit there, but I want to see if the colour will blend out into the water to give a nice edge to our background. Possibly not, because we do have the wrinkles going on when the paper is not liking the water very much, so we'll see whether that actually comes through in the actual colour. Yep, this is soaking into the paper really quite a lot. It is bleeding over my lines. It's not what I was originally envisioning at all, but we'll try and push through and work with it. Let's try some spattering. Always makes things fun. Yeah, I don't think wetting the paper is working as well as I thought it might, because we do have a lot of colour bleed going on. You can see, maybe if I just keep wetting the paper towards the edges after I've already filled in close to Our Lady, I'll have to come in with the white gel pen here. After a quick blast with the hairdryer, this is what we're left with. So I'm going to have to get a little bit creative here with my background. My first step for maybe blending that in is to do a little bit of shading. So I'm going to have a bit of a look what pencils I've got that could maybe cover up some of this mess. I'm not going to stick with the Decatime pencils. I'm going to maybe go for something a bit more opaque to give us a little bit more of a darker background in the areas where we need it. Then maybe try coming in with white gel pen or acrylic marker to cover up some of these areas where the colour has bled through onto our actual lady. So first things first, I'll see if I can grab some Prismacolor pencils, kind of a dark blue maybe to go over some of that background area. All right, we have Denim Blue PC1101. We're going to see what we can start tidying up here with this background. Maybe making the colour darker around our actual image here, fading out into the middle. We do have a lot of colour bleeding going on, especially into her hair here. Maybe it won't look so bad after I have been ahead with this darker blue around the edges, but we will see how we're looking once I've done a little bit of shading here, and hopefully we can salvage this lady. Okay, we're looking a little bit better there. I have tried to go over some of the areas of colour bleed here with a white gel pen, but it really wasn't working. The blue was soaking through the white gel pen. It really wasn't looking too good at all. So my idea is, and this is maybe a little bit far out, but my idea is that instead of fighting this blue that has bled through onto my picture, I am going to run with it, and I'm going to try and make it look as if there is a little bit of blue lighting going on here. So with an acrylic marker, a light blue, I'm going to go over these bits where there is a little bit of blue bleeding onto our picture and try and give us a little bit of blue lighting. Maybe a little bit crazy, but trying to make it look as if we are meant to be like that with the blue. And on her hair. This is a way I do try to deal with some kind of mistakes or happy accidents. No mistakes, right? Just happy accidents. Instead of trying to cover it up, I will add more, make it look as if it's meant to be like that. It is totally meant to have the blue lighting going on here. Adding some more bits of blue. Making that blue lighting look as if we are part of the picture. I'm also adding in a bit of a white outline here to make my lady stand out from the background of that dark blue. Maybe giving a little bit of a blue glow to her. I don't know if that's working that way, but it's going to make her stand out from the background in any case, and I think it's working quite well. It is quite hard to tell from her hair, from the background in this particular part of the picture, so that might help with that. Let's go around our lion as well. And not how I envision this picture. As I said, I'm pretty much regretting trying to test out those pencils as being watercolours. But you don't know if you don't try. And it is all experience in trying to fix pictures that do get messed up, and not panic, just figure out a way to work these things in to your actual image, even though it's not what you originally planned. There's usually ways to figure out to fix things. And this is one idea I do use, as I say, making things look like design decisions rather than accidental spills or splodges. Playing into things, adding more, making it look as if it's meant to be there. And yeah, I think this is actually working a lot better than I thought it might. We did have quite a lot of that colour bleed, and I figured rather than having a messy attempt at trying to go over it and having that white bleed through, we could work with it. Make it look as if she has some sort of blue backlighting, possibly. Bringing in more of a sketchy vibe to the picture, I suppose, as well, which is something I do like. I'm adding a little bit of blue to the lion here as well with the colour pencil. This one is True Blue PC903. just again to try and maybe emphasize the fact that we do have a little bit of blue lighting going on. Any bits that might be highlighted. Yeah, I think that's working. Not entirely how I imagined it coming out, but I think we've coped with the little bit of disasters we had going on quite well. So, crisis averted. Shall I leave it to you guys to decide that? Have we saved this picture or not? Let's try bringing in this cloud blue as a very light kind of tinge of blue as well on our lion. Yeah, I think I'll leave that up to you guys. Crisis averted. I think so. I think we've got a pretty nice picture turning out here, despite all our little mishaps along the way. Happy accidents, maybe, because I wouldn't have, in the first place, I wouldn't have even thought about putting in this blue kind of lighting effect we have going on here. Let's add some on his back here as well, where the highlights would be. Blend it out with the cloud blue. I think the acrylic marker would be a little bit too thick to be trying to add kind of sort of texture here, and I hope this is showing up on the camera. Adding in that kind of rim lighting there with the blue. Maybe we need a little bit on this leg. I'll pop that in with a colour pencil so it can be a little bit lighter than the marker. Okay, I'm going to be calling it finished there. I think that we have avoided disaster there, but I will leave it up to you guys. Is the crisis averted? Let's zoom out and have a look at the whole picture, see what we all think. All right, I've zoomed us out there so we can see the picture as a whole. And I have to say that even though things didn't go completely according to plan today, I think we've ended up with an okay picture there. I'm pretty happy with the way we dealt with the little disasters we had going on today. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong today, it seemed. And I'm pretty happy with the way we dealt with that. I never would have originally brought in that blue as a lighting colour, but I think that does work pretty well, especially on the lion there and on her white hair. Her fingers did end up getting a little bit messy with the bleed through from the super tip being used as watercolour in the background there, but I do know now not to use that in the book. But apart from that, I think the picture as a whole has turned out quite nicely. I do like the contrast between the blue and the red. I do like that lighting, even though it wasn't entirely planned. I might actually bring that up for a little bit of a close-up so we can see what we have ended up doing with Our Lady here. Yeah, I'm really happy with everything apart from maybe her hands there. I've got maybe a little bit messy, but apart from that, yeah, as an alternative to tearing out the page or completely forgetting the work in progress, I think, yeah, we've done something that we can actually be proud of there today, especially considering the disasters that we did have. Just get back in focus. So yeah, that is how today's colouring session has gone. So yeah, hopefully that's been a little bit entertaining for you guys today, seeing how I did cope with all the disasters that were happening towards the end there. I should have left the picture as it was, just a middle bit coloured in, I think. But yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge, but super fun in the end, figuring out how to fix all those things that were going wrong. So a little bit of entertainment, if nothing else. If you did enjoy the video, please consider liking and subscribing. Take care everyone, and I'll see you in future videos. Bye.